Okay, folks, Rich Van Tassel back with you, recapping the 4 o'clock games. We still have the Packers and Seahawks finishing up. Just went to the 2-minute warning. Packers are going to run the clock out. They're going to win this game. We'll give you the box score when that goes final, a little later than I would have hoped. We also are going to talk about Odell Beckham Jr. news. He is inactive for tonight's game. I'll do that at the end of all the recaps. The Carolina Panthers impressive over the San Francisco 49ers 23-3. Cam Newton, obviously the offensive philosophy they were going with seems to be in place, at least for game one, as you would expect. 14 of 25, 171 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, so didn't throw the ball very much. Did not throw the ball that far downfield, only averaged 6.8 yards per completion. Jonathan Stewart, 18 carries, 65 yards. Christian McCaffrey, 13 of 47. Cam Newton only ran the ball 6 times for 3 yards. I'm assuming some of those were kneel downs. 38 of 116, 3.1 yards per rush as the total. Now, again, same as the Baltimore Ravens game. When you're playing a team, you have a lead. It doesn't really matter the yards you're getting on the run. 3.5 you'll take at that point. Usually you want to be above 4, of course, and anything higher than the 4.2-ish, 4.3 is outstanding, and then you go over that is very good. But you get 3.5 yards per carry against the team that you're basically owning for the entire game that can't do much offensively. It works out. Russell Shepard, 2 receptions, 53 yards, 1 touchdown. Christian McCaffrey, 5 for 38, so he did get a lot of touches. Kelvin Benjamin, 1 of 25. Devin Funchess, 2 of 20. Jonathan Stewart had 2 for 17 and the other touchdown. Star Latuier recovered a fumble. Christian McCaffrey lost a fumble. Cam Newton fumbled that was not lost, and Jonathan Stewart recovered a fumble, obviously the Cam Newton one. Thomas Davis had a sack. Star Latuier and Julius Peppers split a sack. Wes Horton had 1. Shaq Thompson also had 1 for 4 sacks total. Luke Kuechly had an interception. The very good linebacker for the Carolina Panthers. Nothing really of note in the return game, so Christian McCaffrey did not do much punt returning. And Graham Gano was 3 for 3 in his field goals. For the 49ers, Brian Hoyer, 24 of 35, 193 yards, no touchdowns, 1 interception. So you throw the ball 35 times, complete 24 of them, and you don't get to 200 yards. That certainly speaks to where a team's offense is at, and it's not surprising that they only scored 3 points. Carlos Hyde, 9 carries for 45 yards, 5 yards per rush. Matt Breida, 4 for 11, 2.8. Brian Hoyer had 1 carry for -5 yards, so that brought the numbers down a bit. In total, it was 15 carries for 51 yards. Pierre Garçon, the top receiver, and that 15 for 51 is 3.4 yards per rush. Pierre Garçon, top receiver, 6 for 81. Carlos Hyde, 6 for 32. George Kittle, 5 for 27. Rashard Robinson recovered a fumble. Brian Hoyer lost a fumble, so that was what? 2 total turnovers for Brian Hoyer. Certainly, San Francisco is going to have very little chance if Brian Hoyer is playing, not completing passes downfield and then turning the ball over. 2 is not brutal, but he's really got to be spectacular. No sacks, so Carolina controlled the line of scrimmage and did not allow Cam Newton to take hits. That's, of course, very big for their success. Jaquiski Tartt had an interception. I saw that. It was a very spectacular interception, to say the least. He returned at 37 yards. But it was basically interception at the goal line, so it works out as a punt. I don't know if it was 3rd down, but you get the sense you don't lose much in field position. Robbie Gould, 1 for 1 in his field goals. Now, for Carolina, their offensive philosophy came to fruition here. Now, granted, you're playing a San Francisco team who's not very good offensively, so you certainly have options there. You can run the ball, and you can limit hits. As we said, you didn't even have to be that effective with the way that they ran to be able to, run the offense. We'll see what happens with them moving forward when they have, more high-scoring games, better offenses, and teams like that. For the 49ers, as we said with Brian Hoyer, he can't turn the ball over if this is how they're going to run their offense. San Francisco, look, I don't think they were necessarily outmatched. I know you'd say a 20-point game where they only scored 3 points. They've got talent. Frankly, their offense just is not capable of making up enough of a difference, and the defense is, put out a lot more than you would hope for this team. So that is certainly where some of the struggles come in that regard. San Francisco is going to have a tough year ahead of them. Los Angeles Rams 46-9 over the Indianapolis Colts. I'll discuss this game at the end because it was still a bit more surprising than I would have expected. Scott Tolzien got the start for the injured Andrew Luck, 9 of 18, 128 yards, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Jacoby Brissett did come in. I would have expected him to come in earlier. He went 2 for 3 for 51 yards. Frank Gore still getting the job done, 10 carries for 42 yards. Marion Mack, 10 for 24. The team altogether, 24 of 75. Marion Mack had a touchdown. That 24 of 75 is 3.1 yards per average. T.Y. Hilton, 3 receptions, 57 yards. Dante Moncrief, 1 for 50. Jack Doyle, 2 for 41. Jeremiah Gorge recovered a fumble. T.Y. Hilton lost a fumble. Scott Tolzien fumbled and recovered his own fumble. I'm assuming he recovered his own fumble. I don't know. Maybe it was one of the other ones. Marion Mack fumbled. It was not lost. And Jacoby Brissett recovered a fumble. So it could have gone either way with either Brissett or Tolzien recovering those fumbles. Regardless, you have the fumble total. They fumbled 3 times, lost 1 of them, and recovered 3 of them. There was only 1 sack. It was Marcus Hunt. Nothing, no interceptions, no kick returns, nothing of note in the punt returns. Adam Vinatieri was 1 for 2 in his field goals. He even missed a field goal that was not even that long. From what I remember, it went off the post. There was actually a chance that Indianapolis might get in the game. They were down 27-3 at halftime, but that, it's a muff punt, and then Adam Vinatieri put it off the post. Jared Goff was good, 21 of 29, 306 yards, 1 touchdown, no interception. Sean Mannion did come in and throw a pass. Todd Gurley, 19 of 40. He's got to start getting it back together to his rookie form. 2.1 yards per carry, did have a touchdown. Malcolm Brown, 7 of 16, 2.3 yards per carry, 1 touchdown. Tavon Austin ran twice for 11 yards. That's 5.5 yards. Sean Mannion took the knees, so that's 3 for -7. That brought the average down, but still not good all the way around. 33 of 63, 1.9 yards per rush. Without those 7 yards, that would be 30. Or that 3 for -7, that would be 30 of 70, which is under 2.5 yards per rush, which is not good enough. Cooper Kupp coming out of nowhere. Some would have projected it. There was some talk about people saying they expected this from him. He had 4 receptions, 76 yards, 1 touchdown. Sammy Watkins, 5 for 58. Todd Gurley, 5 for 56. Robert Woods, 3 for 53. Altogether, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 guys caught passes. 5 of the 8 were more than 1 reception. Tyler Higbee, the other guy, had 2. Everyone else of the 5 was above 2. Tremaine Johnson recovered a fumble. Tavon Austin lost a fumble. Todd Gurley fumbled. It was not lost. 4 sacks for the defensive line. Remember, they were without Aaron Donald. He ended his holdout but did not play. Still have a good defensive line. Robert Quinn, one of them. Of course, you did lose Chris Long. Quinn did have a sack. Tyron Walker also had a sack. Ethan Westbrook had a sack. And Matt Longgrace had a sack. Wade Phillips, the new defensive coordinator. Tremaine Johnson, LaMarcus Joyner both had interceptions. They returned for touchdowns of 39 and 29, respectively. Farrell Cooper had a 35-yard kick return. Tavon Austin, a 13-yarder. Tavon Austin, 3 punt returns for 15 yards, 5 yards per punt return. Nothing spectacular there. And Greg Zuerlein was 3 for 3 in his field goals. Now, we'll start with the Los Angeles Rams and then get into the Indianapolis Colts because the Colts, there's much more to get into. Jared Goff, look, he played what is not a very good defense. The offense for the Colts was certainly helping him out by doing nothing. He was able to get going. That's good. Of course, you want Jared Goff to play well. I said it before when we did the previews of the season. When it comes down to the Los Angeles Rams, you would have liked to see Jared Goff get more of the growing pains out of the way last season. They're going to happen at some point. It's good that he has a game like this in, not his first career start, but certainly his first start as the bona fide starter. And he played very well. Give him that. Granted, the defense was not good. And as we said, the Colts offense helped him out. Now, as for Indianapolis, obviously you don't have Andrew Luck. So can you completely push the panic button? You can't say that totally. But to still get blown out by a Rams team, that offense, regardless of how well Jared Goff played, has not been good in the past. You have a guy who's, making, as we said, not his first career start, but his first start as the bona fide starter, and you're getting blown out like this. You had nothing from your quarterback play. Your defense has to be better, and frankly, the offensive line is not good as is. So it just shows, even with Andrew Luck, you've seen the struggles in the past with this team, that Andrew Luck can do a lot of things. He can keep them around average. You take him off the field, this team is really going to struggle. So we'll have to keep an eye on this injury. I had them 8-8 because of a soft schedule, but it's certainly something we're going to have to look at. This season could really derail and go off the rails very quickly for the Indianapolis Colts. If Andrew Luck is injured for an extended period of time, that's certainly possible. I would expect if he does not play next week, you got to go to Jacoby Brissett. Scott Tolzien is just not there. And the Green Bay Packers 17-9 over the Seattle Seahawks. Russell Wilson for the Seahawks, not good at all. 14-27, 158 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. He was their top rusher with 2 carries for 40 yards. I saw one of them. It came on a broken down play where he broke the pocket. It was a pass play. I would assume that's what happened with the other ones. So certainly it's a situation where he wasn't running the ball strictly as the runner. It was when it became the option of last resort. Chris Carson, 6 for 39, 6.5 yards per rush. CJ Prosise, 4 of 11. Eddie Lacy, no surprise, 5 for 3. Doug Baldwin was 1 for -3. So 18 of 90 overall, 5 yards per rush. But you take out the 2 for 20 from Russell Wilson, that still is 16 of 70, which is over 4 yards per carry, but certainly that buoyed it up to the 5 yards per carry, and Seattle's got to run the ball better, Eddie Lacy especially. Doug Baldwin, 4 for 63, Paul Richardson, 4 for 59, Nick Vannett, 1 of 10, Chris Carson, 1 of 10 in the receiving game. Jimmy Graham, only 3 catches for 8 yards. Russell Wilson lost a fumble. 4 sacks, one of them was split. Michael Bennett had half of it. He also had another full sack, and Frank Clark. Cliff Averill had 1. Terrence Garvin had 1 as well. Nazir Jones, 1 reception. He returned at 24 yards. Tyler Lockett, 3 kick returns for 91 yards. That's a 30.3 yards per return average. One of them was 43, so you take that off. That's 2 for 48, which is still 24 yards, so not bad. So all the way around, a good return game for Tyler Lockett. He only had 1 punt return of 7 yards. Blair Walsh, 3 for 3 in his field goals. For the Packers, Aaron Rodgers, good. 28 of 42, 311 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. That's a little high in the incompletion numbers for him, but you would expect that with a tough Seattle secondary. So all in all, he played well. Ty Montgomery, we've had questions about whether he can be the full-time runner. 19 of 54 in this game, 2.8 yards per rush, did have 1 touchdown. Aaron Rodgers, 7 of 21. A few of those came on breakdowns, 3 yards per rush. Jamal Williams, 2 of 9. 28 of 84, 3 yards per rush. Randall Cobb, 9 of 85 receiving. Jordy Nelson, 7 of 79. He had the touchdown. Devontae Adams, 3 of 47. Martellus Bennett, 3 of 43. Kyle Fackrell recovered a fumble. Corey Linsley fumbled. It was not lost. Aaron Rodgers lost a fumble. 3 sacks for the Packers. It was 1 each for Nick Perry and Mike Daniels, and they both split the other one. Not often you see that. Nothing of note in the return games. Mason Crosby, 1 of 1. Seattle's offense was not good in this game at all. It was 3-0 at halftime, and Green Bay was able to right the ship. They scored 14 in the third quarter. Seattle, their running game has got to be better. Russell Wilson has to play better. Seattle, hey, we saw what the Rams did today. You don't want to get too far ahead of themselves, but they're in a situation where they better, figure it out. It's not where you can just roll over this division. I would expect them to win regardless, but certainly with what I saw from the Rams today, I wasn't expecting that, so I'd have a little cause for concern after seeing how poorly the Seattle offense played. As for the Green Bay Packers, Aaron Rodgers was good. We know he's going to do that. Their running game has to be better, though. Ty Montgomery, I haven't been sold on him as a full-time runner, and I don't see it. So let's see if they find options elsewhere. But all in all, they got the win. Their offense was not great either. Now, as far as the Odell Beckham Jr. injury, he is inactive. I figured he would play, Sunday Night Football against the Cowboys. He'd be able to get it going. He's not. That's certainly going to help the Cowboys. I projected them to win. Certainly, that injury would only further that. conviction that I have. Sorry, I was searching for words there for a minute. Brandon Marshall's going to have to step up, but the Cowboys are pretty weak in the secondary. It's certainly, unproven. You got a lot of new guys in there, so certainly that would help them out. Be sure to see what happens if, guys like Brandon Marshall and Sterling Shepard are able to pick it up in the Sunday night football game. Of course, I'll be watching that because the Cowboys are playing. We'll give you the recap of that when it goes final. So we are done for the early part of week 1 of the NFL season, and be sure to stay tuned for the Sunday night game. We're getting going. The season will be in full swing, and we're all set to go. We love the NFL, so continue to tune in. And remember, we appreciate all subscriptions as well. Thank you all so much, and we'll see you later on tonight.